Good day. It's Friday, April the 30th. I'm Martin Gagel with Radius Research. Today we are joined by Ian Paterson, CEO of Plurilock Security. Plurilock is a cybersecurity company providing endpoint biometric authentication technologies. Ian, thanks for joining us today. Let's hear your pitch.
Thanks, Martin. It is great to be here and good to be speaking to the crowd. I know we've got pretty good attendance here for Friday. So today we're going to be talking about cybersecurity and specifically Plurilock's presence within that market. Just before we get going, Martin, I'm just going to confirm you can see me changing the slides, okay?
You look good. The slides look good.
Awesome. All right, so Plurilock is in the cybersecurity industry. Now, there's been some new numbers that have been coming out. So we look at the cyber market as approximately $1 trillion worth of spending over the next 5 years from 2020 to 2025. For those who might have seen some of the headlines just recently, some new data has come out saying that the damages in cybersecurity from the data breaches and the hacks that are taking place are actually estimated to be closer to 6 trillion in 2021, growing to 10.5 trillion by 2025. So really, any way you slice it, whether you look at the spend, the damages, this is a global problem, but it's also a global opportunity. And so we're excited to be in it, and we're excited to talk to you about it today. Plurilock is an enterprise SaaS software company. We make, manufacture, and sell enterprise subscription as a service software. Very experienced leadership team, both at the management level as well as the board. And the thing that makes us different compared to other cyber solutions is that we have some patented artificial intelligence that allows us to identify people based on their behavior. And we'll get into a little bit about how that works using behavioral biometrics. Historically, Plurilock's had tier 1 customers, U.S. Department of Defense, Department of Homeland Security. And then on the commercial side, really regulated institutions like banks, hedge fund, power plant, that sort of thing. And we'll talk about that as well. Company is based on the West Coast in Victoria. We listed on the TSXV venture about 6 months ago, and we are approximately 40 people. So let's talk a little bit about authentication, or the problem of proving your identity to a computer. So I'm sure most people have multiple passwords. This password technology has really been the same since the 1960s and 70s, hasn't matured all that much. There have been some incremental improvements to passwords. So most people are familiar with getting a text message to their cell phone, or getting a token with a 6-digit number that rotates that you have to type in. These additional checks are what's known as multifactor authentication, where you're blending 2 factors of authentication to prove your identity. So the first factor would be something that you know, that would be a password. A second factor might be something that you have, like a phone or a token. A third factor could be something that you are. So think of a thumbprint or a facial recognition scan. These are traditional biometrics. And particularly over the last few years, those biometrics have become more widespread as we've seen adoption in mobile devices and laptops as well. Now, the good news is that multi-factor authentication, where you blend 2 of these factors together, has proven to be fairly effective. And so you can see there that most compromised accounts were not using multi-factor authentication, or MFA for short. The challenge is that these are frustrating to use. They're also expensive. Anytime you have to buy hardware, that's going to be more expensive than if you're just buying software. And so as a result, multi-factor authentication, while good, doesn't get used as often as it maybe could or should, simply because of those impediments. So Plurilock's solution to this is that we use human behavior, specifically how you type on a keyboard and how you move a mouse. This forms a biometric profile, which is a subset of behavioral biometrics, and that is able to identify you based on the pattern of behavior. We have 2 products. We have Plurilock Adapt, which is an initial sign-on product. So the way that you type your login and password can identify you as a person. And then we're also able, after you've logged in, to continuously authenticate the user using our Plurilock Defend product. So what this means in practice is that since everybody is working from home these days, when you're on your desktop, either your Mac or your PC, we support both, we're able to, every 5 to 10 seconds, validate that you are the right person. Now, from a business standpoint, this becomes really valuable. It becomes important to know who's on the system, who's accessing sensitive data, who's accessing sensitive control systems, for instance. But we do this in a way that doesn't encumber or hinder the user's ability to go and be productive through the day. Now, you might be wondering exactly how this works. So the artificial intelligence that really underpins the backbone of these products is a form of behavioral biometrics. So the piece of software runs as an agent on the endpoint, and we're able to identify how you type, so the speed, rhythm, and cadence of how you type on that keyboard. Similarly, on the mouse, we look at the direction, speed of movement, change in direction. All of that data gets collected. Our AI engine then builds a profile of what's normal for you as a user. Usually takes a couple of hours to build that profile. After that profile is built, then we're doing the constant checks approximately every 5 to 10 seconds, where we're validating your current behavior against that known profile. Technology itself has had tens of thousands of hours and millions of dollars of investment that's gone into it. We've had the technology peer reviewed, hundreds of journal articles, received thousands of journal citations. We do have 3 issued patents today. We also just announced this spring an additional 3 provisional patents that we applied for, one earlier, I think in February, and then another 2 just as recently as the last week or 2. So we are continuing to invest in research and maintaining that competitive edge against potential competitors that might come up behind us. So the business itself, we're selling to mid-market and enterprise organizations, and we are protecting the employees of those organizations. So as an example, we might sell to a regional bank. That regional bank might have 3,000 employees, and we would seek to sell to all 3,000 of those employees. We charge on a per employee per month basis, so between $3 and $9 per employee per month. And so if you do the math, 3,000 people times $3 a month works out to be approximately $100,000 per year. So that would be a desired or typical deal size. And there are a good number of institutions that have both a regulatory need for cybersecurity technologies, as well as a high degree of cybersecurity risk. Some industries, like financial services, like healthcare, are very heavily targeted, and they know it, and so they have to protect themselves against those threat actors. Now, Plurilock sells both direct as well as through channels. Particularly over the last 6 months, we've been announcing a number of reseller channel partners that we have been signing up, and so we do leverage those as access to end customers. This is an enterprise sale, so we are targeting either annual or multi-year licenses whenever possible, and so it becomes a fairly large deal size. Now, I mentioned that financial institutions in particular are very good fits for this type of technology. We have a number of them as customers today. Now, the good news is that there are a lot of them out there. So if you just take financial services, if you forget about the US federal government, if you forget about healthcare, if you ignore all these other industries, just financial services alone, there are approximately 3,000 institutions that meet this criteria within North America. And so that represents a very near-term target market, again, even if you exclude the other industries that this is a good fit for. Now, Plurilock sought to go public largely to scale and grow quickly, and so we are focused definitely on the organic sales. We're also focused on growing through acquisition. And so cybersecurity as an industry is very fragmented. It leads to a number of great opportunities to acquire existing distribution or access to customers. And so there's a number of cybersecurity solutions providers, resellers, VARs, systems integrators that are in the ecosystem. They may not have their own products, but they may have great customer relationships. They might have great revenue and great profitability. And so those are the types of synergistic acquisitions that we are seeking to do. We have made one acquisition so far. And we'll talk a little bit towards the end of the presentation about that transaction in a little bit more detail, which was just recently announced. So in terms of the team, a couple of things that I draw your attention to. First, myself, CTO, VP product, we've all worked together at a venture-backed company called Terapeak, which was eventually acquired by eBay. Roland Sartorius, our CFO, very experienced in the public markets, also has a tremendous amount of M&A experience, so a lot of good horsepower there. He was formerly CFO at a $500 million private equity firm in Switzerland, so provides a great lead to our finance team to manage both the public side as well as the M&A strategy. In terms of the board, I'd also draw your attention to a few names in particular. On the bottom left, Ed Hammersley was formerly the head of Raytheon Cyber Products, so extremely skilled both in cybersecurity as well as federal government in the US, in addition to commercial cybersecurity offerings as well. So Ed has been tremendous as a director and has been very, very valuable since his addition about a year and a half ago to the Plurilock team. I'd also draw attention to Admiral McConnell. Admiral McConnell was the former director of the NSA in the United States, and then he moved to a more senior position called the Director of National Intelligence, where all the individual intelligence agencies in the United States reported up to him, and then he would brief the president on a daily basis in the Oval Office. After Admiral McConnell left public service, he then went on to Booz Allen Hamilton, where he helped grow their cybersecurity practice to a very large part of their business, and then ultimately helped to take Booz Allen public. And then most recently, we've also recruited Molly Duramel onto the board of directors, very experienced in the U.S. capital markets, as you can see from some of her her experience and connections there. I'll just walk you through briefly the cap structure. So these figures are from April 1st. So the share price has been approximately 60 cents, I think high 50 cents over the last couple of days. We have approximately 58 million shares outstanding. And our cash position, so we just recently released Q4s of last year. They haven't made its way into this deck yet. But as of Q3 last year, we had 3.1 million in cash on the balance sheet, but obviously that does not include approximately 6 months worth of operations. And that also excludes the $5 million private placement that we completed in February, nor does it include the Aurora acquisition. So just a couple of data points there to draw your attention to. Now we had set out a number of catalysts for 2021, and these were items that we had hoped to accomplish. And I'm very pleased that even as of April, we've accomplished 4 out of 5 of these. So I'll go to the next slide here and just give you a bit of a timeline on how those took place. The one catalyst that we're still hopeful to accomplish in 2021 is to launch 2 platform integrations. And so this would be more of a product-led sales strategy where we're connecting into an existing ecosystem of technology. And the idea there, the goal is to make it easier for customers to both acquire and leverage the technology that we have. So we're able to cut down on some of that sales friction and also customer friction and increase the time to value. So that's what that last remaining item is there. In terms of recent successes, I'll actually start from the bottom and then work my way to the top. So in January, we completed our cross-listing. And so we're now trading on the OTCQB market under the ticker PLCKF. In February, we completed a private placement valued at approximately $5.1 million Canadian. In March, we recruited Molly Duramel to the board. And then late March and then early April, we announced and then closed on Aurora, which is a company based out of Southern California. And we'll talk a little bit about Aurora in detail here. So like I was mentioning previously, our growth strategy is twofold. One is to grow sales organically. The second is to acquire distribution and access to customers inorganically. Aurora is a great example of that inorganic strategy. So Aurora, just kind of a snapshot, in 2020, they did approximately $35 million in revenue Canadian. They have just under 20 employees, and that represents about 140 clients approximately. Now, the Aurora business is split into three sections. They have a federal business where they sell to the US federal government, both on the defense as well as the civilian side. They have a state, local, and education business, which is shortened to SLED in the industry. And then they also have a commercial business. And so all three lines of business were highly valuable to Plurilock because it represents customers that meet our ideal criteria of who could leverage the Plurilock products. And so for us, it presents a great opportunity to be able to cross-sell our core owned high margin Plurilock products through the Aurora customer base. In terms of the transaction details, we paid $1.5 million total consideration US. So just mind the currencies there. So of that 1.5 million US, approximately 60% of that was cash. That was financed using cash on hand. There was no debt involved in this transaction. Another 20% was in equity. And then the last 20% is also in equity on a performance milestone-based plan. So very good mix, and I think also aligns incentives between the seller, who's now the president of this division within Plurilock, as well as the Plurilock side. So we're very excited about this transaction. We think that it's going to create a lot of shareholder value, and so we're keen to see how the rest of 2021 plays out with this acquisition complete. All
right. Well, with that, thank you very much, Ian, for joining us today and telling the story. A lot of neat stuff going on there and very informative. Thanks a lot. Talk to you again soon.